Hi everybody, welcome to Baking with Sammy. Today we are gonna make my healthier cinnamon roll muffins. Again, these are gonna be gluten-free and dairy-free. They are super good, super moist. What you're going to need is roughly 4 cups of almond flour. I'll let you know what the consistency is supposed to look like. Then you have 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder. You're gonna want some salt, a 1/2 cup of sugar, a 1/4 cup of olive oil, 2 eggs, and a cup of almond milk. That's gonna be for your base. For your filling, so I've got 2 bowls here, one for my filling and one for my glaze. My filling is gonna be a cup of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of cinnamon, and some olive oil, just until it's wet. And then the glaze is a cup of powdered sugar and a tablespoon of almond milk. What you're gonna wanna do is grab some muffin pans. It does make 12 exactly. Just spray those down with some olive oil, make sure they're good, and preheat your oven to 350. So let's get started, shall we? So I'm gonna start off actually by making my filling. So I'm going to take, for that filling, a cup of brown sugar. Right now I just have a 1/2 cup, so some brown sugar. Honestly, I think that that's fine. I normally don't ever follow the recipe to a T, just because I think that that's a lot of filling personally. And because we're doing it as a topper, we're not gonna need as much. And then we need 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. So I've got my cinnamon here. I've got my tablespoon. Honestly, I'll probably just put in a heaping 1 tablespoon and call that good. Throwing in just a little bit of olive oil. And we just want it to be kind of wet as we mix. So it should almost turn into more of like a crumbly type of texture. And as you can see, I've got olive oil in heaping loads. So it should kind of start to get just like a little bit crumbly. Doesn't need to be super crumbly because it's gonna go inside these muffins. And then once it looks kind of like wet, so it should look kind of like that, you're good with that. If you add a little bit too much olive oil, that's okay, as long as it's not completely saturated. If it is, just even it out with some more brown sugar. For our glaze, we're gonna do a cup of powdered sugar. And again, I'm just gonna eyeball it here. That's about a cup. And this is only going to go on the top of muffins, so you don't necessarily need exactly a cup. If you want it to be a thicker consistency, you're going to use less almond milk. If you want a thinner consistency, then you are going to want more almond milk. So I'm just going to put in just a tablespoon here, so it's really not that much. I'm going to mix that well. And it'll kind of be a little bit clumpy to begin with. So you can see it's all kind of like sticking to my spoon. So it's gonna start like that. And then as you mix, it should slowly start to get a little less thick if it doesn't. So mine is staying pretty thick here, pretty gloopy. I'm gonna add just a tad bit more of my almond milk. You don't need a lot. And again, I'm just going to mix that. Sorry, I had to check on the doggo. He's on medicine, so I gotta make sure he's good. And him being quiet is new. All right, so now you can see I have this kind of like drizzle consistency, so that's kind of what I'm looking for. Once that is all mixed up, we're just gonna set both of these kind of off to the side. And we'll just put to the side here. Now I got my big bowl, and we are going to crack 2 eggs. Right into the bowl. Grab my whisk. Just whisk it a bit. Almost like you're making scrambled eggs. And once you're done with that, we're gonna add just a little bit of vanilla to your liking. We are gonna add a half a cup of sugar. Not a cup, a half a cup of sugar. I use cane sugar. You can use whatever sugar you want. I mean, honestly, if you want to use brown sugar, you can use brown sugar in these too. Whatever you want to do. Date sugar, coconut sugar, any type of sugar works. The more healthier sugars are going to be your date sugar and your coconut sugar. But cane sugar is a pretty close third. That's just a little bit less processed. Regardless, we are making healthier options for things that we like healthier options of like canned cinnamon rolls, healthier options of cookies, you know? It's better if you make it yourself. And at least the ones I tell you don't take too long. They're normally like a 30 to 45 minute or less type of bake. All right, so once that's in, we are going to take a cup of almond milk. So there's half. There's another one. I'm not gonna need that anymore. Give it a good whisk. Make sure that it's incorporated. It's gonna be a pretty wet batter. All right, once that is done, we're gonna do our 1/4 cup of olive oil. Which is a butter replacement. I prefer olive oil to most other things for a butter replacement. If you can use bananas, I will tell you, if you use bananas, it's gonna taste like bananas. I got my salt here. I'm just gonna go with that salt, just a little bit. You don't need a ton. And again, we are mixing that in. So far we got a pretty big, you can see how wet this is. It's basically like water, like a thick water, which is why we use so much for our almond flour. So that's gonna be next. So it's supposed to be roughly 4 cups of almond flour. I normally put in enough to see what it looks like. So definitely at least 2 cups. I'll say between 2 and 4, depending upon the brand that you buy. And I don't measure this because I am gonna go based off of how I see it. So we're gonna try about half this bag, which is about 2 cups. And see what that consistency kind of gets me. If it's still too wet, we'll add more. And If it's too dry, we just add a little bit of almond milk, but that is not gonna happen. So more than likely it's gonna be too wet, which it definitely is. So it's thicker, but it's still pretty wet. So I'm just gonna make sure I get out all of my clumps. Almond flour tends to get kind of clumpy, especially because you're supposed to keep it in the freezer. So those clumps tend to stick a little bit more. All right, so now where you can see it's pretty much not even as thick as a pancake batter, I'm gonna throw some more in. I'll probably end up using that whole bag, but that's fine. Oh, maybe not. All right, this is thickening up to a great consistency. Should be between like a cookie dough and like a really thick pancake batter. There we go, that's what I'm looking for. So not quite this entire bag. So I'd say 3.5 cups. Like I said, it's gonna depend on here's my oven. The consistency and how wet it is to begin with. So you can now see it's kind of like this. The consistency now is pretty granular, and that's okay. It's gonna look grainy because it's almond flour. That's totally fine. We did want it a little thicker. So, like I said, something that'll hold on to kind of like a really thick pancake batter. And then from there, we're gonna add 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder. Okay, so 1, 2, and a half. Mix that in. It's gonna help. It's a double acting agent. It's gonna help your muffins to rise. Make sure it's mixed in pretty well here. And then we are going to divide things into our muffin tins. Okay, so what I like to do personally, because muffin tins sometimes tend to overflow, is what I will actually do is take a sheet tray and I will put my muffin tins on that sheet tray, so if there is any spillage, it doesn't go onto my oven. All right. So now we have our batter, we have our filler and our topper, and we have the glaze for when it's actually done and out of the oven. Again, 350, it's gonna be in the oven for about 20-ish minutes. If you shake it and it still jiggles in the center when you shake it, it's not done. Add on another about 2.5 minutes, check it again, jiggle it. If it still jiggles, 2.5 minutes, and keep going until it doesn't jiggle in the center anymore. Because it may start with the sides first. The center is normally the last part to cook. So what I'm gonna do is grab maybe a thicker spoon, something like this, to scoop my batter. I'm gonna line the bottoms. Move you guys over here so you can see. I'm gonna line my bottoms with batter first. Depending upon how big of a scoop I get, I might add a little bit more to the bottoms of each as I'm already flicking batter around. But you want just a good spoonful. Just enough so you get this nice kind of center cinnamon piece. All right. Again, these should already be sprayed down with some olive oil. The best part about olive oil is, again, it's anything over 350, you wouldn't want to use it, but because this bakes at 350, we can use that olive oil without it turning into a trans fat and going rancid in the oven. In case you did not know that, that is why things have certain smoke points. If, say, this was a 375 bake, I would be using avocado oil instead of olive oil because it's got a higher smoke point. All right, so I have my initial, just a little bit, not even halfway, so probably like a third of the way. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my crumble and I am going to crumble that into the centers of my muffins. And it is okay if it's not even, it will melt even. All right, so I am not putting any of my topper. I just wanted it in the center instead of on the top. You can do it on the top, you would just put less in. And then we will finish topping with the rest. And we would fill it basically to the top. So again, we're gonna put that kind of scoop full. Make sure that that brown sugar is covered with the batter. And it will basically fill your muffin tin to the top. So there may be a little overflow, not as much because it's not a flour base, it's an almond base. So they will get big, but they won't really super overflow. Like I said, this is going to make just about 12. You are going to want to use all of this batter, so make sure you get everything super clean. It's okay if they're not totally even. That's totally fine. Honestly, somehow I ran out of enough batter, but that's fine. I'm just actually gonna take some scoops from the tops of other ones that are a little thicker. Maybe I should have gone with that last half a cup. So this one is just gonna have brown sugar on the top. It's gonna be a smaller muffin, and that's okay. That muffin is not gonna be the one that we test when we do the jiggle test at all. Again, I might spoon some off of some of my more full, just so I can at least get that a little more covered. Baking. Once that's done, we are going to put that in the oven, again, for just about 20 minutes. Do the jiggle test. If it's still jiggly in the center, put it back in. I like to flip mine halfway through, so I'll flip mine at 10 minutes. It's gonna go in the center rack in the oven. And you already have your glaze ready, so really all you gotta do is wait. Stir your glaze every so often. It might get a little thick if you don't. And after that, I'll send you a picture of what everything looks like. And that is how to make cinnamon roll gluten-free, dairy-free muffins.